All right, today we're going to be looking at percents in this video. So we've already talked about fractions, and if you literally divide a fraction, it can make that into a decimal. So percentages, if you take a decimal and multiply it by 100, that will turn it into a percentage. So we're going to solve some percent problems today. So I'm starting on page 259. So we're going to start by doing some mentally. So it says, the first one says, calculate 15% of 6,500. So if we do this in our head, 10% of 6,500 would just be 650. So then therefore, let's do 5% next. So if 10% is 650, 5% would be half of that. So 5% should be 325. So then therefore 15%, we can add those together. And 650 plus 325 would be 975. So 15% of 6,500 should be 975. For number 2, let's see. Let's do 10% again. So let's say 10% of 80,000 would be 8,000. And then 5% would be half of that, so 4,000. So 95% would be taking the full amount minus 5%. So 100% minus 5% would be 95%. So if 100% was 80,000 and 5% is 4,000, if you take that away, 95% should be 76,000. Now, there are lots of different ways to do this. So if you are trying this on your own, you may be doing something totally different than me, and that is fine as long as you are getting to the final answer. So you just want to be thinking about different percentages that would be easy to calculate mentally that would help you achieve your goal. Let's see, 7% of $24. So let's just start with 10% again first. Let's see, 10% would be $2.40. So let's just jump to let's do 5% first. So 5% would be half of this. So if 10% is $2.40, 5% would be $1.20. All right, and then going back to this first one, 1%, let's say, would be 24 cents. So to make 7, if I had another 1%, that would be another 24%. So 7% would be 5% plus 1% plus 1%. So 120 plus 24 plus 24, so that would be 168. So 7% should be $1.68. All right, what about 60% of 810? Where do we want to start? Let's try 50. So 50%, half of 810 would be 405. And then another easy one should be 10%. So removing the 0, that would be 81. So 50 plus 10 would make 60, so that would be 486. Okay. Number 5, 55% of 180. So again, let's try 50% first. 50% would be half, so that would be 90. And then what? How about 10%? 10% of 180 would just be 18. Remove that 0. So if 10% of 10% is 18, 5% would be half of that. So that would just be 9. So 55%, 50 plus 5, so 90 plus 9 would be 99. All right, and then finally 22% of 530. So I would probably do 10%. which is 53. Another 10% would get you to 20%. So 20%, if you double 10%, that would be 106. And then we need 2%. So 2%, if you know what 20% is, 2%, we're removing that 0, or moving one decimal place to the left, should be 10.6. So 20 and 2 would be 22%. So that would be 116.6. 106 plus 10.6. Again, lots of different ways that you can do this mentally. So find those easy percentages that you know how to do. All right, moving on to page 260. We can also find percentages instead of mentally. We can use equivalent fractions. So two fractions that are equivalent to each other is a proportion. So maybe you have heard of proportions before. So we can solve percent problems using proportions. So it's a certain percentage out of 100 is equal to the part divided by the whole. Now, with this one, I just said we were solving with proportions. I was kind of lying to you. We're actually just going to solve by making equivalent fractions. Proportions is coming later. So, let's see. So it says, show how to determine what percent 60 is of 400 by finding equivalent fractions. So what I want you to do with these 6 problems on page 260 is 60 is what percentage of 400. So it's a part of a whole, again, is equivalent to some percent out of 100. So the goal would be what fraction is equivalent to this that is also going to have a denominator of 100. So how do you go from 400 down to 100? You would be dividing by 4. So you can also do that to the numerator. So 60 divided by 4. What is 60 divided by 4? That should be, what, 15? And so our answer should be 15%. Okay, so we're just doing equivalent fractions. All right, number 2. The number 225 is what percent of 500? So 225 to 500. So what is that in terms of 100? So if we were solving this with a proportion, we would do an x here, and then we'd cross multiply. But again, it's not what we're doing. We're doing a different strategy. So how do you go from 500 down to 100? You would be dividing by 5. So you would want to do that to the numerator as well. So 225 divided by 5 should be 45. So 45 out of 100 would be 45%. Number 3, how to determine what percent 6 is of 25. So 6 to 25 is what to 100? So in this one, instead of decreasing our fraction, we need to increase our fraction. So how do you go from 25 up to 100? You would multiply it by 4. So 6 times 4 would be 24. So this one will be 24%. Number 4, show how to determine what percent 12 is of 75. And then this one, it says, note, you may need to use several steps in this one. Okay, so in this one, we can't just say we have a fraction equal to 100 because I don't know how to go from 75 to 100. So what could you do instead? Well, you could reduce this fraction and change this into 25 first. So how do you go from 75 to 25? You would divide by 3. So if we divide the numerator by 3, that would leave us with a simplified fraction, 4/25. So then from there, 25 is easy to get to 100 if we just multiply by 4. So like 4 quarters make $1. So 4 times 4 would be 16. So this one is 16%. The next one, what percent of 60 is 42? Okay, so I had to read that one a couple of times. Okay, so what percent of 60 is 42? Okay, so what equivalent fractions could we use for this one? So why don't we divide this one by, let's say, we go down to 10. So how do you go from 60 to 10? You would divide by 6. So if you take the numerator, also divide by 6, that would give you 7. So 42/60 reduces down to be 7/10. So then what would that be in terms of 100? So just add a 0, that should be 70. So 70% of 60 would be 42. And then the last one, the number 24 is what percent of 16? So this one's a little different. 24 is what percent of 16? So this is an improper fraction. So obviously it's going to be 100% of 16 plus some more in order to get up to 24. Let's see, what's this reduced down to be? Let's see. 4 goes into both of them. So if we divide by 4, what do we have? So that would be 6/4. What does 6/4 do? What if we divide that by 2 to get this down to 3/2? All right, so then 3/2, if we, let's say, multiply by 10, that would get us to 30/20. And then we can get to 100 by multiplying by 5. So that is 150. So 24 is 150% of 16. So it would be 1 full 16 plus half of another 16, which would be 8. So 16 and 8 make 24. All right. So again, on these, there are lots of different ways to do them. So if you did them in a different way, that is totally fine. All right. Now we're talking about setting up a proportion. So we can also solve percentage problems, so not just mental math or using equivalent fractions. We can also solve by doing proportions. So it's the same idea. Some percentage out of 100 is equal to some part out of a whole. So there's kind of 3 different things that could be happening. I could give you a problem where you don't know the percentage and you have to solve that. I could give you a problem where you don't know the part and you have to solve that. Or I could give you a problem where you don't know the whole, and then you have to solve that. So I believe the 3 examples are right here. So for number 1, so it says 54 is what percent of 96? So we are trying to find the percent, and 54 would be the part of 96. So we would set up our proportion. How do you solve proportions? You cross multiply. So if we cross multiply, you have 96x equals 5400. And then to get x by itself, divide both sides by 96. So 5400 divided by 96. This comes out to be 56.25. So that would be a percent since we were asking for a percent. So 56.25%. So if you need to see the work, we're dividing by 96 and we're cross multiplying there. 28% of what number is 42? So we have the percentage, 28 out of 100. So 28% of something is 42. So is 42 the part or the whole? 42 would be the part. So 28% of something is 42. All right, so if we cross multiply, 28x is 4200. So divide both sides by 28. So let's see what that is. 4200 divided by 28. So 150. So 28% of 150 is going to be 42. Okay. And then the last one. What is 5.2% of 36? So 5.2% of 36, is that the part or the whole? That would be the whole. So we're looking for the part. So cross multiply 5.2 times 36 is 187.2, and then we have 100x. So divide by 100, and that would be 1.872. So 1.872 is 5.2% of 36. All right, so we're going to use these proportions to solve some word problems. There's kind of a lot of them, so just, hang with me as we go through these. Why don't you go ahead and try the rest of these on your own? So they go from 2 to 14. Try them out, pause the video, and then come back to check your answers to these. Okay, so here we go. Number 2. Ms. Toll has 30 students. 15% have never read a textbook. How many of Mrs. Toll's students never read the textbook? So 15% out of 100. 30 total students. So how many students? What part are we looking for? So to solve this, 15 times 30 is 450. 100x. So divide by 100. That's technically 4.5 people would be the answer. We would round that up to 5 because you can't have half of a person. So 4.5 or 5 on that one. Number 3. Mr. Keene said 40% of his students rode to school on the bus. If 25 students rode on the bus, how many students does he have? So we're looking for the grand total. So 40x is, that would be 2,500. So 2,500 divided by 40, that is 62.5. So again, that would technically round up to 63 people. So if you're showing your work, so divide both sides by 40 once you cross multiply. All right, 28 out of 32 members of the football team weigh over 200 pounds. So what percentage is that? So x out of 100 is 28 over 32. So 32x is equal to 2,800. Divide by 32. So 2,800 divided by 32 is 87.5%. So that should be your answer for number 4, 87.5. All right, next page. 82% of people attending a banquet prefer tea to coffee. If 287 people prefer coffee, how many people are at the banquets? Okay, so you might get tempted to just not even think about this and say, okay, 82 out of 100 is 287 out of what? If you do that, you will be wrong. So what is the problem? So you need to read these problems carefully. So 82% of people prefer tea. 287 people prefer coffee. So these are not the same. So you need to make sure, again, you are reading carefully. So if 82% of people prefer tea, what percentage of people prefer coffee? That has to be everybody else, which would be 18%. So this should not be 82%. It should be 18%. 18% of people like coffee, which is 287 people. So again, as you're reading these, be careful. So how many of you just set it up without really thinking about the numbers? Hopefully not a lot of you. So 28,700 divided by 18. So again, this is a weird number. So 1594.4 repeating. So this would technically round up to 1,595 people. Okay. A teen bought a computer system on sale for $649 and paid a total of $681.45 including tax. What is the tax rate? So what percentage is the tax? So again, this is another one. You might be tempted to just say, oh, 649 out of 681.45. That would be wrong. So how does it work when you buy something? So when you buy something, he's buying a computer for $649. Then they take a certain percentage of this number in order to find the tax, and then they tack that amount onto the total price. That's what you eventually pay. So the starting amount is $649. So how much money was he actually charged in tax? So $681.45 minus $649. So the difference is how much he paid in tax. So what is that? $681.45 minus $649. So he's paying $32.45. Okay, so you got to do that extra step first. So $32.45 was some percentage of the original price, the $649. So let me jump over here. So cross multiply 649 times X, 32.45 times 100 should just be 32.45. So 32.45 divide by 649 on both sides. X is 5%. So he paid 5%. If you're dividing, let me show my work in case you need to see it. All right. Number 7, a baker said that 12.5% of their sales are for donuts. If they sold $150 in donuts on Monday, what was their total sales for the day? So 12.5% out of 100 is some percentage to make $150. Okay, so 12.5x is equal to, let's see, 150 times 100 should be 15,000. So divide both sides by 12.5. And how much money did the bakery make? So that should be $1,200. So answer should be 1,200. All right, number 8. So 8, 9, I think the rest of these. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I would solve in a different way. So all of the rest of the problems are talking about a percent increase or a percent decrease or a profit. So there is another formula that you can use to do these that is kind of easier, I think, than doing a proportion. So if you take the new price minus the old price divided by the old price, that will tell you the percentage of change. Okay, so I just try to remember the phrase no over O. So I'll write that out. No over O is my way of remembering about increase and decrease. So then we don't have to think about a proportion. Maybe I'll show you a proportion just to show you what it looks like, just in case that you did one of those. But then from here on out, I'll just use this new formula. So a diamond ring sold for $1,200 last year, and this year it is selling for $1,500. What percent of increase does the new price represent? So what we have always done in the past is this. Here is the percent that it went up. So the thing, again, that you have to remember, it's kind of like what we just did on number 6 with the computer and the tax. If this is the percent increase, what amount did it increase by? It went up by $300 compared to what did the price used to be, or what was the starting price? That was $1,200. Okay, so maybe you set up a proportion like this. So 1,200x is 30,000. So 30,000 divided by 1,200 should be 25. So it went up by 25% in price. So 25% of 1,200 would be 300, so it's 1,500. So if you use this new formula, though, instead, New minus old over old, no over O. You would be taking new price is $1,500 minus old price is $1,200 compared to the old price of $1,200. So that would tell you it is 300 out of 1,200, which again is 25%. Okay. So either way that you want to do these, I again think it's kind of easier to remember this new formula so that you're not having to calculate the difference. But again, whatever you want to do in order to get the correct answer, whichever method. All right, so number 9. A man purchased a pair of cowboy boots for $80 but sold them on eBay for $115. What % profit did he make? So the new price, he's charging $115 compared to the old price was $80. And the original price was out of $80. So how much did he mark these up? So 115 minus 80, it's 35 compared to $80. So 35 divided by 80 is 0.4375. So that would be 43.75%. Okay. So if you had done the proportion, what percentage of increase was it? They started at $80. How much did he mark up the price? They went up by $35. So 80x is 3,500. So 3,500 divided by 80 is the 43.75. Okay, so it still works. Okay, we just got a few more. Let's see. Number 10. A new car costs $25,400. Next year, its value is projected to be $22,000. What percentage of decrease in value does that represent? All right, so the new price, it is dropping to $22,000. So take away the old price, which was $25,400, divided by the old price. So what is the difference in price? It decreased by how much? So let's see. It decreased by $3,400 compared to the original price, which was $25,400. So that is a decrease of 13 point, let's round to 2 decimal places, 39%. So it's negative because it is a decrease. Okay. Again, if you set this up in a proportion, it is some percentage out of 100. The original price was $25,400. How much did it decrease by? $3,400. So just to save some time, I'm not going to multiply this out, but if you multiply it out, you should still get the same amount. So if you did it, try it out. Okay, number 11. Meg paid $115 for her textbook, but it is selling for $73.60. What percent of decrease was that? So the new price is $73.60. Originally it was $115. So how much did it decrease by? Let's see. It went down by $41.40. So that is what percentage of the original price? So that is a loss of 36%. So 0.36. Again, if you had set this up as a proportion, some percentage out of 100, the price difference is 41.40. That's the percent that that's the amount it decreased by compared to the original price, which was $115. So again, if you cross multiply, you should get the same answer of losing 36%. Okay. Now, if you do it this way, I should mention this. If you do it this way, it will look like your answer is positive. So just keep in mind, this will say it's 36%, but it's a 36% decrease. So just keep that in mind. So again, that's why the negative is over here. All right, number 12. A bicycle store owner pays $210 for a new bike. he marks up the price of the bikes by 20%. So what should the selling price on the bike be? Okay, so this one, let's see. We can set this up a little bit differently. Let's see here. So the old price was $210, and we know it's a markup of 20%. So what price would that have to be in order for it to come out to be 20%? So this is one way that you can solve this one. If you cross multiply 210 to the other side by the 20%, you would be having x minus 210 on the left, and let's see, 0.2 times 210 is 42 on the right. So adding 210, the new price of the bike should be $252. Okay. Now, since this one is a little weird, if you thought about this in terms of a proportion, let's see. The 20% out of 100 is the markup. We know the bike was $210, so you would have to first find the price of the markup. So if you did that, let's see, 210 times 20 is 4,200, would be equal to 100x. So divide both sides by 100, and you would find out the markup price would be $42. So then to answer the actual question, what is the selling price? The original price was $210. You are marking it up by $42, which is why the cost should be $252. So you can do that one either way. All right, number 13, so a couple more. An appliance salesman, made $3,200 commission last year during the holiday season. His plan is to increase his commission by 25%. So if he does that, what will be his new commission? Okay, so let's start with a proportion this time. So 25 out of 100. Let's see. His current amount is $3,200. So he wants to find out, he wants to make 25% more than that. So how much money would that be? So 3,200 times 25 is 80,000. So that would equal 100x if you cross multiply. So divide both sides by 100. That's going to be $800. So how much will be his new commission if he was making $3,200 and then it increased by $800? He would now be making $4,000. All right, if you wanted to do no over O instead, what amount would he have to make now compared to the $3,200 he used to make in order to come out with a raise of 25%? So 25% of 3,200, let's see here, is the $800. So if you add 3,200 to the other side, again, it will come out to be 4,000. So either way that you want to solve those. And then finally, a coat originally cost $150. It will be marked down by 30%. What is the sale price? So for this one, 30% out of 100. It was originally $150. So first of all, how much is it being discounted by? So you could cross multiply. 150 times 30 is 4,500. So that equals 100x. So the discount is $45. You divide both sides by 100. So that means if you want the sale price, it was $150. So if you take $45 off, it would be down to $105. Okay. Now, if you tried that with no over O, let's see. What would the new price be minus the old price of 150 divided by the old price of 150, and that has to come out to be, so here's where you have to be careful. It's marked down by 30%. So, since it is being marked down, we don't want to put 30% here. So, instead, if it is being marked down by 30%, you are paying how much of the original price? So you would be paying 70% of the original price. Okay, sorry, I'm messing up. So yes, it's true that 70% would be the original price. However, we're still trying to find the markdown price. So forget everything I just said. So the thing that you need to be worried about is it's marked down 30%, which is 0.30. However, since it's marked down, the thing you want to remember is then this would be a negative amount. Okay, so that was my mistake. So it's not making it into 70%, it's making sure that it's a negative 30%. So 150 times negative 0.3 would be a negative 45 over here. So x minus 150 is negative 45. So then when you add the 150, that gets you to the original price of $105. Okay, so maybe for this one the proportion would be easier than trying to figure out the no over O method. But again, whatever that you want to do. All right, so then for homework, I want you to try some percent problems. So they are on page 265. So 1 through 5 are on the front, and then there are 4 more on the back, 6 through 9. So try all of these out, and then you will submit them into Canvas. Again, be sure that you read the questions carefully. So for example, on the first one, you're making a pot of coffee and you have 3 cups left over, and it says 85% of the coffee was consumed. So you are giving leftover and consumed, so those don't match. So think about how you would fix those in order to make your proportions correct. Or using any method you want. So if you want to do the mental math, if you want to make equivalent fractions or proportions, all I care about is that you are getting correct answers. So try those 9 and submit them to Canvas. If you have any questions, let me know.